This is a 2020 MacBook Air. A lot of you know the 2020 Air as the MacBook that introduced Apple Silicon processors to the world, changing Apple's legacy forever. But while the M1 chip was out there creating headlines, Apple were quietly selling an Intel-based version of their MacBook Air. One with the exact same body on the outside, but 10th generation Intel chips on the inside. You could get these with i3, i5 and i7 chips for varying prices. This one here is a 1.1 GHz i3 model. It started at £999 or US dollars, the exact same price you could pick up an M1 Air for. The M1 MacBook Air is still my go-to recommendation for a budget laptop 6 years later, thanks to how groundbreaking its performance and efficiency were. So just how bad was this one? Well, it's equipped with the Intel i3 1000NG4, an ultra-low power chip clocking in at just 1.1 GHz, able to boost up to 3.2. The 1000NG4 notably has just 2 cores inside. It's mind-blowing how Apple were able to charge $1,000 for a dual-core laptop in 2020. Without knowing it, a lot of MacBook Air buyers had just bought into the worst investment opportunity maybe ever in the world of MacBooks. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. Performance on this laptop was nothing short of weak back in 2020, but now 6 years have passed and this thing is running a much heavier, updated version of macOS. It struggles to perform basic tasks that might take seconds on any other machine. Shown here is my best effort to change the wallpaper, which didn't go too well. A lot of the time when computers seem slow, it's not actually a lack of processing power. Sometimes the storage drive simply isn't fast enough to load features of macOS. That's not the case here. This Mac boots from a PCIe-based SSD and even has 3700 MHz DDR4X RAM. The problem really is just how weak single-core performance on this i3 is. Check out the benchmarks. With a single-core score of 1069 in Geekbench 6's CPU test, the i3 MacBook Air is struggling to beat 2013 and 14 MacBook Pros. The highest-end 2013 MacBook Air is almost at the same level with a score of 933. Unbelievably, the multi-core results are even worse. This thing scores 1907, putting it in between a mid-spec iMac from 2012 and an 8-core Mac Pro desktop from 2008. Those Macs are a decade older than this thing. Imagine trying to run macOS Sequoia on either of those computers. No wonder the experience running it on this i3 Air is so full of glitches and slowdowns. Okay, beyond its actual processing power, there must be some redeeming qualities of the 2020 i3 Air, right? The screen is a very passable 2560 by 1600 LED panel with brightness up to 400 nits. Not the biggest nor the brightest, but the resolution is great, and it's a very color accurate panel. I'd be happy color grading my videos on this if the performance weren't so fucking rubbish. The whole audiovisual experience is pretty good actually. The speakers in Apple's 2020 lineup are great for their size, and there's a good amount of detail reproduced from this stereo setup. The design in general is actually quite nice. Proper aluminium build with the thin tapered edges making this thing nice and easy to plonk in a backpack. You could get these in silver, grey, gold, and the elusive rose gold. I've no real complaints about this design aside from the lack of ports. The keyboard is also a modern scissor switch type, one of the first to be reintroduced after Apple's famous butterfly keyboard blunder. This one has a solid and sturdy 1mm of key travel, so it's absolutely fine for typing a lot, if you can get the word software to load. Bear in mind, this thing received its last major macOS update in 2024 in the form of macOS Sequoia. Unreal. 4 years of support from 2020 to 24 on a laptop that cost a minimum of $1,000 brand new. Somehow Apple pulled off the most incredible heist here under everyone's noses. They released this absolute weapon of a MacBook, charged $1,000 when it genuinely wasn't worth half of that, and then quietly dropped support for it after 4 years so that everyone would forget about it. The greatest trick the devil ever produced was convincing the world he didn't exist. Having no more software support is a big issue for the i3 MacBook Air. With Intel Macs, you used to be able to use something called the Open Core Legacy Patcher to update MacBooks beyond Apple's official support run. This isn't possible on this laptop as it's got the T2 chip inside. T2 acts as an SSD controller, restricting what kind of OSs will boot natively. It was advertised as a big jump forward in security at the time, which is still technically true, but it's really hampered the user's ability to customize their machines as years have passed. So macOS Tahoe and beyond are out of reach for this little MacBook. It's doomed to run macOS Sequoia for the rest of its days, so when the most popular apps like Microsoft Office and the Adobe Creative Suite drop support for Sequoia, it'll be an even more restricted machine than it is currently. So that brings me to the market value of this device. No one in their right minds will be buying this in 2026, even at a far lower used price. I actually received this by way of a clerical error. I like to buy and resell Macs on the side as it brings in a bit of extra money. I saw an advert last week for an M1 MacBook Air for £240 UK, so I swooped on in on a deal too good to miss. Only when I received the machine did I realise it was the nightmare dual-core i3 variant. I'd overpaid handsomely for the runt of the litter. So by the time you see this video, this i3 MacBook Air should be well on its way back to the seller, who clearly mistyped the title. And fingers crossed I do get a refund. Right now, these things sell for around 180 UK pounds, aka $240 US, 205 euros, or a really bad deal. I wouldn't recommend picking one up for pretty much any of the reasons I mentioned in the video. But if you can find one for something crazy like under 100, it will do the trick if you need a laptop to take notes on or watch a bit of Netflix. Now is a good time to sell if you own one, since macOS Sequoia is pretty up to date at the time of recording. Value is going to steadily decline on these MacBooks, so get out while you can still sell yours for close to £200. Other than the lackluster i3 processor, what other parts do you actually get for your money? Well, as I mentioned, there is a PCIe-based SSD on board. You get 256GB of storage with the base model, going all the way up to 2TB at maximum. It's quick, high-quality storage, but not user-serviceable. If this thing dies, your MacBook is bricked, as you can't remove the storage drive to put another one in its place. The same goes for the RAM. 8 or 16GB available at purchase, but not upgradable after the fact. This laptop runs 3733MHz DDR4X RAM, so there are at least relatively up-to-date speeds there. As it's an Intel-based Mac, the 8GB models do struggle notably more than those with 16GB, but the 16 ones are a lot harder to find, simply because Apple charged $200 for the increased capacity at the time. Not cool, man, not cool. Graphics are predictably an internal affair, with the i3 1000NG4 containing an Intel Iris Plus iGPU. It can share up to 1.5GB of the machine's RAM for graphics, which won't be good enough for very much in 2026. One weird fact about this machine though is it supports eGPU solutions, so you can plug a desktop GPU into this thing using the Thunderbolt capable USB-C ports and run games and stuff with a much more powerful graphics card. I don't know why you'd want to spend time or money on that, but it is a path you could go down if you're trapped purely by GPU performance. So that's the 2020 i3 MacBook Air. Frankly, I hope it never darkens my doorway again, so you probably won't see another video about it on this channel. An interesting piece of Apple history nonetheless. If you're interested in interesting pieces of Apple history, you can subscribe for more or join my Patreon for early videos and other perks. There's also a Discord server where we talk about this kind of thing all the time really. Riveting stuff. Thank you very much for watching, and if everything goes to plan, I'll see you next week.